Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Manjeet Singh from Punjabi University, Patiala. Today we are going to discuss about a module Foreign Trade and Investment under the paper Business Environment. After completing this module, you should be able to understand the meaning and history of foreign trade in India. You should also be in a position to understand the composition, direction, and importance of foreign trade in India. You should also be in a position to understand the meaning and roots of foreign direct investment. You should also be in a position to understand the measures to attract foreign direct investment. And finally, to understand the regulatory framework of foreign investment in India. Foreign trade plays an important role in the development of any country. Trade can be considered as a social activity because it provides goods and services to satisfy the human wants. Each country has to buy the goods and services which it requires, but cannot produce the, from the other countries, but cannot produce. So it has to import from the other countries and similarly sell the excess produce of goods to the other countries. This process of buying requires goods and services from other countries, and selling of surplus goods and services to other countries is also known as foreign trade. We can segregate the trade into two broad categories. One is internal trade or domestic trade or home trade, and the other one is external trade or foreign trade or international trade. Composition and direction of foreign trade of India. At the time of our independence, our exports were mainly of primary goods and imports were primarily of the manufactured goods. And during post-independence period, the composition of Indian exports changed. Composition of Indian trade refers to the major commodity or sector in which India's exports or imports. Before the independence, primary goods and agriculture commodities were the major portion of the exports and oil, machinery, cotton, etc. were the major imports of India. But after post-independence horizon of Indian exports and imports has increased due to mainly structural changes which have taken place from time to time. Composition of foreign trade includes composition of exports, secondly, composition of imports. Now let us talk about the direction of trade. Direction of trade refers to the countries to whom India exports and countries from which India imports the goods and services. Before independence, India's foreign trade was limited to Britain, but after independence, USA, Germany, Japan, UK emerged as the new trading partners. Following are the major trading partners of India. When we talk about the export partners, India exports 7,500 commodities which value almost $264 billion to about 190 countries, including USA, Hong Kong, Singapore, China, Japan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and Vietnam. And this figure belongs to the year 2015. When we talk about the import partners, during the same time period, India imports around 6,000 commodities, which value around 390 billion US dollars from 140 countries, which includes China, Saudi Arabia, Switzerland, United States, Indonesia, Germany, Iraq, etc. Importance of foreign trade. First is capital goods like machinery and know-how is very essential for the development of the country. But with the help of foreign trade, we can take the benefit of improved technology through imports. Secondly, it helps in fulfilling the gap between the domestic demand and supply through imports. Thirdly, more exports result more production, which leads to increase in employment because extra production requires more manpower. Fourthly, exports also result into the increase of packing and transportation, which results into expansion of other industries. Fifthly, foreign trade brings improvement in agriculture and industrial sectors of the economy. Sixth is it is helpful for the removal of shortage of goods. If there is a shortage of any good, then that commodity can be imported from the international market, which will eliminate the shortage of that commodity. The seventh point of importance is that foreign trade helps to improve the quality of local product. Another is that foreign competition helps in the price stability of a nation. If the price level is high of a good, then that commodity can be imported, which will keep price in stable position. Another is that in the presence of international trade, the resources are properly utilized, which are helpful to increase the exports of the nation, and as a result, per capita income and national income also increases. India has already marked its existence as one of the fastest growing economies in the world. Foreign direct investment, that is FDI, is a very crucial source which is required for the development of Indian economy. Foreign companies invest in the developing countries to take the benefit of cheaper resources and the dynamic business environment. A foreign direct investment is an investment made by a country or entity based in one country into a company or entity based in another country. The main characteristics of FDI is that the resident companies are managed by the foreign companies. Foreign direct investment differ from indirect investment such as portfolio flows where a foreign country institutions invest in the equities listed on a nation's stock exchange. Entities making direct investment usually have vital degree of influence and control over the company into which the investment is made. An example of foreign direct investment would be an American company taking majority share in a company in China. Dr. Manmohan Singh and PV Narasimha Rao bought FDI in India in 1991, which leads to creation of more jobs in India. According to United Nations figures in 2015, India attracted investment of $44 billion, dollars, which is 26% more than the previous year, and became 10th largest destination for FDI globally. The new government's efforts such as Make in India, increase increase in the foreign investment limits in defense, retail, civil aviation, and pharmaceutical companies, etc., are positively contributing to attract more FDI in India. It has been ranked among top 3 attractive destinations for inbound investment. Since 1991, the regulatory environment in terms of foreign investment has been consistently eased to make it investment friendly. Procedure under automatic route. FDI in sectors permitted under automatic route doesn't require any prior approval either by Reserve Bank of India or by the government. The investors are only required to inform the regional office of Reserve Bank of India within 30 days of receipt of inward remittances and are required to file the document with that office within 30 days of issue of shares to the foreign investors. Following documents are required to file with the Reserve Bank of India within 30 days of the issue of shares. Firstly, name of the promoter, collaborator or shareholders, details of allotment, and thirdly, copy of foreign collaboration agreement. Procedure under government approval. FDI in activities not covered under automatic route require prior approval of the government and the RBI. For this, application in form FCIL is required and decision of FIPB is conveyed in 4 to 6 weeks. Following are the activities where the government approval is mandatory: banking, NBFC activities, civil aviation, venture capital funds, housing and real estate development, infrastructure and service sector, atomic energy, defense, agriculture, print media, broadcasting, etc. 2016 budget measures to promote FDI. Various relaxations are provided to the foreign investors by the Government of India in order to increase FDI in India and to increase employment and the GDP. These are as follows. Firstly, it is proposed to allow FDI in Indian insurance and pension sector up to 49% through automatic route. Secondly, with a view to reduce the non-performing assets, that is the NPAs, it is proposed to allow 100% FDI under automatic route in asset reconstruction companies which manage NPAs and make them profitable. Thirdly, investment limit in Indian stock market has been increased to 15%. Earlier, it was just 5%. This will help the Indian Stock Exchange to compete globally and to adopt global market practices. Fourthly, horizon of eligible instruments for FDI has been widened by including hybrid instruments also. Fifthly, introduction of central state agreement to ensure the fulfillment of the obligations of state governments under the treaties. Sixthly, limit for FDI in public sector enterprises listed on Indian Stock Exchange other than banks has been increased from 24% to 49%. And lastly, the foreign investors can take business in India up to 5 years, and the provision of residency status for investors will be soon introduced, whereas presently no such provision exists. Measures to attract FDI in India. Indian foreign investment policy is the most liberalized policy in the world, where 100% FDI is allowed in many areas, and various significant changes have taken place in the FDI policy from time to time in order to make it investor friendly. Some of the latest measures are as follows. Firstly, 100% FDI has been allowed in specified rail infrastructure projects, white label ATM operations, duty-free shops located and operated in the custom bonded area, and manufacturing of medical devices through automatic route. Secondly, investments made by person resident outside the India under Schedule 4 of FEMA is now considered as domestic investment, same as made by residents of India. Thirdly, FDI up to 49% has been allowed in defense sector through automatic route subject to certain conditions. Fourthly, 100% FDI has been allowed in certain plantation activities such as coffee, rubber, palm oil, tree and olive oil tree, etc. Fifthly, foreign investment cap on satellites and credit information companies has been increased from 74% to 100%. Sixthly, approval limit of Foreign Investment Promotion Board, that is, FIPB, has increased to 5,000 crores, to make the approval process faster. Seventhly, various reforms have been done related to the construction and development sector, like removal of restrictions related to floor area and minimum capitalization. Exit and repatriation has been allowed after the lock-in period of 3 years, and 100% FDI has been permitted in the completed projects related to operation and management of townships, malls, shopping complexes, and business centers. Problems related to FDI inflows in India. The first problem is poor infrastructure. Poor infrastructure is the most important hurdle in the way of FDI inflows, and these include the power shortage as well. Corruption and misuse of public facilities is another problem, which restrict the foreign investors to invest in India. Thirdly, disparities in the government policies is another problem, which leads to development of only selected areas which attract FDI, and the other areas remain untapped even they have plenty of natural resources. Fourthly, rigid policies and rules are another obstacle which makes the India unattractive for FDI. Policy and regulatory framework of FDI. The Government of India made framework of FDI in the form of FDI policy, which is updated every 6 months. The Department of Industrial Policy Promotion, Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Government of India makes announcements of the changes in FDI policy through press releases notified by Reserve Bank of India. Thus, the regulatory framework of FDI includes acts, regulations, notification, press releases, etc. Following aspects are covered under the regulatory framework of FDI policy. First is entry routes for foreign investment. There are mainly two routes through which foreign direct investment can be brought into India. These are automatic route and government route. Under automatic route, no prior approval of the government or the Reserve Bank of India is allowed to invest in India. Only an intimation to the regional office of RBI is required within 30 days of receipt of inward remittance, but under the government route, approval of the government is required for investing in those activities which are not covered under automatic route. For this, the application in the form FCIL is required, and decision of FIPB is conveyed in 4 to 6 weeks. Second is prohibited sectors. The following are the sectors or activities where FDI is prohibited. First is gambling and betting. Second is lottery business, chit funds, Nidhi company, real estate, retail sector, atomic energy, etc. FDI in limited liability partnership. FDI in limited liability partnership is allowed only for those areas where FDI is allowed through automatic route, and this limited liability partnership should not be engaged in any activity or business where FDI is not allowed, or where FDI is allowed under government route. Government of India recently allowed FDI in limited liability partnerships subject to certain conditions, such as foreign capital participation is allowed only through cash. Investment in limited liability partnership by FII and foreign venture capital investors is also not allowed. FDI in export oriented units or special economic zones. The Government of India allowed 100% FDI in special economic zones and export-oriented unit subject to certain norms. FDI in special economic zone is allowed through automatic route in the activities covered in foreign trade policy issued by the Department of Commerce. Industrial licensing. Industries Development and Regulation Act 1995 deals with the industrial licensing. FDI is allowed in all the industries where industrial licensing is compulsory through government approval. Requirements for industrial licensing has been reduced and licensing is compulsory only in the following areas: alcoholic drinks, cigars, cigarettes and other tobacco products, defense equipment, industrial explosives, hazardous chemicals, drugs and pharmaceuticals, items reserved for small sectors, etc. FDI in SSI, that is small scale industries units. An industrial undertaking is considered as a small scale unit if its capital investment in plant and machinery doesn't exceed rupees 10 million. For small scale industries, foreign equity participation is allowed up to 24%. If the equity participation exceeds this limit, then it will not be considered as small scale industry even if it has investment of less than 10 million in plant and machinery. Foreign technology collaborations. FDI in foreign technology is allowed by the Government of India to enhance the technical capability of Indian industry through automatic and government approval. Power to allow payments to foreign collaborators by Indian companies is reserved with RBI subject to the following limits. Lump sum payment doesn't exceed 2 million US dollars. Royalty payments are limited to 5% for domestic sale and 8% for exports. Entry options for foreign investors in India. A foreign company which wants to set up a business in India can enter through two modes. First, as an incorporated entity. A foreign company, by incorporating under Companies Act 1956, can enter into India through joint venture or wholly owned subsidiary by filing an application to the Registrar of Companies. Once a company registered itself, then it is subject to follow the Indian laws as the other domestic companies. Second option is as a foreign company. A company can enter into India by setting up representative offices, project offices, or branch offices with the approval of RBI. Main role of the representative office is limited to just collect the information about prevailing market opportunities but cannot undertake any commercial activity. Project offices are set up the companies which set up any specified project in India and branch offices by the foreign companies which engage in manufacturing and trading activities can set up for the following purposes: export and imports, consultancy services, shipping company, carrying research work, rendering services in IT, etc. Government initiatives. The Government of India has relaxed the FDI policy norms for non-resident Indians. Under this policy, the non-repatriable investment made by the overseas citizens of India, persons of Indian origin, and NRIs will be treated as domestic investment and will not be subject to FDI caps, that is, foreign direct investment caps. Secondly, through a notification issued by DIPP, the government has also raised FDI cap in insurance sector from 26% to 49%. Thirdly, the Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs has raised the entrance for foreign direct investment requiring its approval to rupees 3,000 crores from the present 1,200 crores. Fourthly, India's cabinet has also cleared a proposal which permits 100% FDI in railway infrastructure. India is likely to grant most favored nation treatment to major 15 countries that are in talks regarding an agreement on regional comprehensive economic partnership, which would result in easing of investment rules for these nations. Lastly, the Government of India plans to further simplify the rules for foreign direct investment and include more sectors in the automatic approval route to attract more investments in India. Now let's talk about foreign institutional investors. Foreign institutional investors are the entities which make proposals for investment in India, but they are incorporated outside India. In other words, these are the foreign companies which invest in India. According to SEBI, that is Security and Exchange Board of India, foreign institutional investors means an institution established or incorporated outside India which proposes to make investment in Indian securities. Foreign institutional investors are commonly investing in the developing countries and they are considered as source of development of the countries. Participatory notes are the main source through which foreign institutional investors can invest in India, and these are also known as offshore derivatives. Foreign institutional investors can invest in the stocks and debentures of Indian companies through portfolio investment scheme. Entities such as pension funds, insurance companies, mutual funds, hedge funds, and charitable trusts, they are also known as the foreign institutional investors. It is mandatory to get itself registered with Securities and Exchange Board of India, that is SEBI, before investing in the primary and secondary market. And registered FIIs only can also invest in the dated government securities, mutual funds, commercial papers, and derivatives traded on recognized stock exchanges. SEBI guidelines for foreign institutional investors. SEBI regulates the activities of FIIs in India, and following are the main regulations specified by SEBI for the FIIs. The first is registration. Registration is required for FIIs in order to invest in the securities of Indian companies. For registration, an application should be made to the board in Form A, and the applicant has to furnish all the information required by the board. After examining the track record and financial soundness of the applicant board with the guidelines of Government of India, issue the certificate of registration to applicant in Form B within 3 months of furnishing information. Secondly, procedure where certificate is not granted. When the application made for grant of registration certificate is rejected by the board, then board has to make a written intimation to the applicant by specifying the reason for rejecting the application. After receiving the intimation, the applicant can make the application to the board for re-examination within 30 days of the receipt of intimation. Investment restrictions. Foreign institutional investors may invest in the following: securities in the primary and secondary capital market listed on recognized stock exchange, units of mutual funds and UTI listed on recognized stock exchange, dated government securities, commercial papers, derivative traded on recognized stock exchange. Fourthly, Appointment of domestic custodian. FIIs are required to appoint a domestic custodian who performs the following activities. Firstly, monitoring of investment of FIIs in India. Secondly, reporting of the transactions of FIIs to board on daily basis. And thirdly, preservation of records of activities of FIIs. FIIs can appoint more than one custodian with the prior approval of the board. Appointment of designated bank. It is mandatory for FIIs to appoint a branch of bank approved by RBI for opening up of the foreign currency denominated account and special non-resident rupee account. Seventh point is maintenance of proper books of accounts. Every FII is required to maintain the following books of accounts for a minimum period of 5 years and to intimate the board in writing the place where these are kept. True and fair accounts of the capital gain arising from buying and selling of investment and their remittances, bank statement of account, contract notes relating to the sale and purchase of securities. Appointment of compliance officer. Every FII is required to appoint a compliance officer who ensures that all the rules and regulations, notifications, instructions, and guidelines issued by the board and the government are properly complied or not. Furnishing information to the board. It is compulsory for FIIs to ensure that they furnish any information demanded by board, RBI, or government without any delay. Liability in case of default. Any FII who controverts any rules and regulations specified by the board is liable to the actions covered under Chapter 5 of SEBI Regulation Act 2008. So students, let us now summarize what we have learned from this module. Foreign trade helps to improve the quality of local products. Foreign trade brings improvement in the agriculture and industrial sectors of the economy. Foreign competition helps in the price stability of the nation. It also helps in increasing the employment opportunities, income generation, and high living standard. Foreign trade is helpful in fulfilling the gap between the domestic demand and supply through the imports and exports. India has undergone through a substantial change because of the rapid development which results into the change in the composition and direction of foreign trade of India. Before independence, primary goods and agriculture commodities were the major portions of exports, and oil, machineries, cotton, they were the major imports of India. But after independence, engineering goods, pearls, gems, jewelry, softwares have become major exports, and capital goods, petroleum, iron, and steel have become the important imports. Foreign direct investment has become one of the very crucial source for the development of economy, and it has helped the foreign companies to invest in India and to take benefit of the cheaper resources and the dynamic business environment. India's foreign investment policy is now more liberalized, and in many sectors, India is allowing 100% foreign direct investment. And these policies have been made to change from time to time in order to make them more investor friendly. With the introduction of liberalization process, India's share in the world trade has increased, and trade with the rest of the world is also increasing on a continuous basis. The initiatives which have been taken by the government to improve FDI in India have also started giving us some benefits. The Government of India plans to further simplify the rules for foreign direct investment and intends to include more sectors in the automatic route which are more easier and which attract more investments in India. Thank you.